love what you do, enjoy it, try to get better at whatever your craft is every single day. Be open to feedback and have fun with it. You're going to fail throughout the way, but that is how you will succeed in the long run. Just have fun, be positive. Mindset is everything.
Welcome to the Prime People Podcast. This is the podcast where you get to learn expert insights from some of the best and brightest in the real estate agents and beyond. We've had people like Glenn Lundy, Ryan Serhant, Scott McGilvery. Today we have my boy Fahad on to dig into how he went from selling insanely high-end luxury goods to being one of the top producing agents in his market. Now he is the managing director at the agency. We have been in collaboration for some time. If I shared with you some of the things he was just telling me about AI, it would blow your mind. So we are going to share that with you and dig into it in today's episode. So make sure you hit the subscribe and notification button and get your notepad ready. Mr. Fahad, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I actually want to jump right into the AI conversation first. Then we'll get to your background strategy, kind of what you're doing day to day. AI, spill the beans. What are you doing with it? And how do you think it's going to impact your business in the future?
Oh, man, I feel so inspired. So I was actually at the Tom Ferry conference last week in Dallas, or almost 2 weeks ago now. And that was fantastic. It kind of opens up your eyes as to what's actually going on in the marketplace and what other people are doing. So as yourself, I run a podcast as well called Art of Greatness. And what we do with that podcast is we actually upload the link into something called Opus Clip. And Opus Clip helps you break down your long form content into short form reels, and it automates the entire process. So it picked up about 38 different pieces of short form content. It transcribed all of it, gave us a title for that actual video, and auto captioned the entire thing. All 38 of them took about an hour to actually execute, and it was really good overall. Now, is it perfect? No, you can go in there, tweak it, but a lot of it is usable content ready to go, and it's not even that expensive. I think for about 114 US for a full year, you can get 2,400 minutes of content, and 2,400 minutes is a fair bit. So that is one of them that we're actively using. So I have my assistant on that, and he's uploading the actual video. So we're trying to pull out content from each video and audio podcast that we have. And that way we can repurpose that content into 25, 30 different reels. So if I'm at 10 episodes, I have effectively 300 pieces of content that I can put out. So if you're recording 20 episodes, well, that's 600 pieces of content. And then you can repurpose them. So now I'm utilizing Social Bee, and we're putting together a content strategy where we can hit all the different pieces without actually having to go into each platform. So being able to manage it, and that's something that I didn't have set up in the past. So between TikTok and we haven't actually posted anything through there yet. So it's currently in the background of setting up and getting all the content ready. And then the strategy goes into play. Can we do 2 a day on each platform and have enough built out to be able to take it from YouTube videos for clients, these podcasts that are mainly for entrepreneurs, agents who want to learn, and then be able to hit all aspects of the business. And depending on which format we want to take, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and then just be able to post all of that out through one place.
So, but somebody watching this might say, like, why does it matter, right? A lot of people like to kind of poo-poo the content production side of things, not realizing the overarching strategy behind it. So I guess, why are you doing all this if you're somebody that sells real estate and trains agents?
Okay, so I think there's 2 buckets that you can look at this in. The first bucket is what you do today to gain business, which is we're going to make the calls, we're going to door knock, we're going to cold call, whatever it is, call expireds or go door knock expireds, because we're in Canada, we can't physically call them. And that is today's work for today's business or for the short-term business. But long-term, to build a content and build a brand, and I'm no expert, right? So I'm just getting started in this myself. I've got the brand Art of Greatness, and I'm trying to build that up. And I felt like there was a big gap in how often I was posting and what I was doing to get in front of the consumers, build trust. Because if they know you, like you, trust you, they'll ideally do business with you, put out more content for also consumers. So I have the podcast that's focused more entrepreneurial, more agent focused. And that's to help people develop their skills. That's to share people's stories with them, to show them that, anyone from any background can make it. And you've had some of the top agents on your podcast as well. So I'm honored to be here, by the way. I'm honored to be one of the names that's on your podcast. But then utilizing that to just build trust, build a brand. They see you once, twice, three times. You build YouTube videos, 7 to 10 minutes ideally, and then you break that down into short form content. And you've been doing it for such a long time. So I'm really a newbie at that. And that's something that I'm working on, doing 2 pieces of content every week, long form videos, 7 to 10 minutes, to be able to put that out, whether it's a market update, a property tour, or it's something that's breaking down for sellers, buyers, what they need to do, really driven to be informative and educational versus come hire me. Because the come hire me is kind of automated with the education that you put out there. If they believe in what you're doing and your skills, I feel like you'll get the call. And I feel like I'm great when I'm in front of a client. I need to get in front of the client more and double down, triple down on it. I was consuming a lot of, and I mentioned this in one of my podcasts, and I mentioned Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And I remember his old content, and I hadn't consumed any Gary Vee content for maybe 5 or 7 years. And I kind of went back to it this weekend and started listening to some of the keynotes. And he is bang on point about what he's saying, that we all need to double down on producing content, how much content we put out there, and just being the agent that people trust and being the knowledge broker ideally.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason I asked you that question is I don't think people realize the impact from a longevity perspective that you have with thought leadership and producing good quality content directed towards the right people, right? Like you can do transactional business, you can cold call, you can bring somebody a deal and do a transaction. It's very different than when people are calling you for advice based on years and years and years of sharing and expertise. And you can build a short-term transactional business, but I've told agents before, you're never going to get rich doing transactions. You'll make a lot of money doing transactions, but you're going to become wealthy through building relationship. And I think in the world of the future, one of the best ways to do that is through thoughtful content production and targeting that at an audience that is your ideal client, right? Like when I think of you, I think of luxury, I think of high class service. And you definitely have brought that forth through your audio content, through relationship building on apps like Clubhouse that we've had in the past. So I know how you carry yourself. I'm excited to watch your journey of you translating that into actual content. I think I want to talk about the art of greatness for a second. That podcast is an exemplification of that, because the clients that you want to work with probably own companies. They're probably entrepreneurs and they're buying houses and they're opening up offices and they're dynamic in a few different ways, right? Am I correct in that's kind of the audience that you're trying to target with that podcast?
Yes. And right now it's not even a target. It's more so I want to put out content, great content for people to enjoy. I'm not looking for anything back from it. I'm not even looking for clients. I know it's a long game. I know it's going to take 20, 30, 40, 50 episodes. By the time we get to year 2, year 3, that's when things will start rolling and the brand itself will just build into that. And it was just a vision that I had in the beginning is I'm going to stay true to myself and what I want to focus on. I had a lot of noise in the background where people told me, make it 30 minutes, 20 minutes. People aren't going to listen. I'm like, you know what? Your vibe attracts your tribe. If people love the content, they will come back for it. And I've been lucky enough to host some of the top people in the industry already. I had Jordan Cohen on, who wrote the book, The Agent's Edge. That was a fantastic chat. I had George Ozunian on, and some of these guys are doing 200, 300, $400 million in business a year. Had someone who sold a house to Michael Jackson and was Michael Jackson's friend. It's amazing. Zarzingani, his story is incredible. So just kind of going through their stories, their journeys. And I've invited yours truly, Justin Konikow, on my podcast. So we'll have you on there at some point in time when you get back from your vacation.
Yeah, it's a vacation and a retreat. So we're building Prime 6.0, constantly thinking about what the next version or like the new iPhone launch of Prime is going to be next year. So we're coming back gung ho. I have an idea of what that looks like, but I think the retreat is going to be very helpful for that. And I will definitely be on the show. I'll come out your way if there's definitely time, and we'll make time for it. The other reason I think it's really important to highlight the podcast and what you're doing is it truly creates collaboration, right? The ability to reach out and text me directly with things that you're working on for your clients to talk strategy and vice versa, right? If I'm working on a high ticket item and I'm like, hey, the people that used to shop where you were somebody that was the person servicing them, what are their habits? What are their lifestyles? I think that really does help you sharpen your sword. So I guess, how has collaboration helped you get better at your business over and beyond producing content? Like, I'm sure you take nuggets of information from your guests. There's backroom conversations that have made you get better. How has that collaboration helped you get clarity on where you're building your business?
I think it really started even at the Clubhouse source as well, right?
Huh.
That was a few years ago
Yeah.
where we got on this fantastic audio app and we were just sharing information. And look, I had little pieces to share where I can help someone, and then someone else has information that can help me. And I feel like every guest that I have on my podcast, I'm constantly learning and trying to better myself to implement some of the things that they're doing. I'm not afraid of having someone who's even in the same market as me on the podcast. I had Jazz Tacker on there. And
Yeah.
there's no issue with having someone from Toronto who sells what you sell or is also selling to investors. It's collaboration and the culture of collaboration over competition, ideally, and understanding us collectively are just better as a whole and we can all better each other. And all of our backgrounds are so drastically different, right? So for me, I hadn't been in direct consumer sales for a very, very long time. Sure, I come from background wise, I came from Saks Fifth Avenue, Hugo
Yeah.
Boss, I guess the Aldo Group, but I didn't actually physically sell since the mid 2000s. I'd
Mm-hmm.
probably say like client to client sales or business to client. The rest of the time was spent in management and leadership. And then I got to build these fantastic teams and lead through being away from the client. Even at Saks as the director of operations, it was running a business with 300 people, 15, 16 senior level managers, over $100 million in transactions. So how do you manage from afar while still staying close, while still managing the financial side and then the people side, which is the people side's the hardest thing to
It
do, right?
is.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what's actually missing within the real estate industry as well, because we have a lot of agents who've gone into broker manager roles and they have little to no broker manager or leadership experience. So I think that's a big gap. And someone like yourself, what I see you've built an enterprise, right? You're not just building, you built your real estate business, then you built a brokerage, then it's become a media company, and now it's just ever evolving, which is what I love. I think you're one of the leaders that I've seen that I'd love to embody my career after, to see, okay, he's kind of built an enterprise, gone into the next level. And I think that's what helps me is becoming more of a visionary to see, okay, how can I challenge myself to do better? Or how can I kick my ass to say, okay, if that person's selling $1 million, they don't know half of what I know. It's sometimes the work and the obsession that helps, and not necessarily always the knowledge that you have or the ability to do things. Sure, I may be a better salesperson than the next guy, but if I'm not willing to act on it or do the work, make the calls, and make the videos or whatever it is that I want to focus on, obsession wins over talent. And that's the reality of our industry, I find.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, unequivocally, I've seen people that were obsessed do something consistently long enough that they uncover what they want. Like, we had talked about this. Nico's the creative director at Prime Media, does some of the most incredible visual work you can imagine. I love cinematography. We got dragged down a wormhole where we were almost doing too many jobs for other people, where we actually don't need more clients. Like, to be frank with you, we were focusing on our ecosystem and our platform, and that's what we really want to build. But it's only through doing the consistent actions over time that we identify where the speed bumps are and the things that we need to remove from a friction standpoint, and then simplify the process. And I think we have a lot more clarity even in the last couple of months than even we had a year ago, and a roadway of what that looks like. And then if we want to bolt on services on top of that, we can. But I think you have to boil it down to what, like, minimum effective dose. So something I see in you as an opportunity that you should lean into is that management background that you had with Saks Fifth Ave and all those companies. That's a very unique skill set where you hit the nail on the head. Like, I don't want to be a manager of people. I've got people within my organization that have a background that you do. So I need to empower them and let them jump into that role and shine. I need to obviously give them the systems and the processes and kind of help them get there. So if I was coaching a sales team and saying, hey, we have 300 people, Fahad, like, how do you stay tied in with 300 people on all these different geographic locations? Was it your direct reports, the 16 managers that you ran? Like, what does that look like from a management perspective?
Yeah, so you're not actually directly running any of the associate population whatsoever. You're dealing with the management teams. And it's either you're dealing with 8 managers here or 7 managers on the sales side, 8 on the operation side. It just depended on the actual structure of the space. So you need to keep close tabs on each of the managers and empower them to be able to make day-to-day decisions. You can't effectively in that role, you cannot be a micromanager. And I personally hate micromanaging. I'd rather
Most people
tell you
do.
what I need done in terms of high level. Here's what I need. We set expectations, and then the proof is in the follow up, right? And there's this popular quote: "In God we trust, and all others we may follow up. We must follow up." So in God we trust, and all others we must follow up. And I think that is the key to success, even as a leader, is if you clarify expectations, give people the tools to succeed, and are able to help them resolve issues that do come up. But you shouldn't be resolving them directly. You should always be asking the question, what would you do? And instead of providing the answer, always empower them to
Yeah.
understand what the issues are, how they would resolve them, even if you have to ask a couple questions to help them get there, because then they're figuring out the solution. If they've figured out the solution themselves, although you had it in your head all along where you helped them get there, it's now their idea. And they're more likely to execute their idea over an idea that you say, okay, here's how you solve the problem. Here's what you do. Instead, ask the questions, but now you're actually helping them learn and understand how to work through issues by just asking the right questions. But that also comes with so much time in that role. It's hard for people to understand. I see your head spinning. You're like, this is probably something that I do or I could do more of, or whatever it is for each person. But just understand, how are you helping their development to be an autonomous leader within your organization versus being an employee that you need to tell what to do every single time.
Yeah, as you broke that down, like I went through a couple different agents that I've had in the organization, and like Nathan Smith is a great example of somebody who took it and ran with it. So he used to work for Lulu. He was male model. He kind of lived that whole lifestyle, and it was wild because he came to me through a friend of the brokerage and was like, "Hey, I think he'd be great. He's looking for a job. The hours were killing him with expediting and everything they did kind of at Lulu." So I was like, "Yeah, what's your salary? Come, I could definitely use you to kind of be my assistant." And then we ended up paying for him to get his license. And when I was training him, that's exactly what I found garnered the most success. Is a problem would come up, and instead of me saying, "Oh, this is how you fix it," it was always, "Well, how do you think you fix it?" And now Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, is phenomenal. Talks about, have one problem, let them come up with 3 solutions, propose one solution, and then discuss it. And then maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Let them go do it, and then let them come back and recalibrate and readjust. And I think that's a big part of leadership of tomorrow. Is it used to be, you work for me, you punch a clock, come sit in the office, and just park your butt there, do the job, and I'm going to rake in the money. That day is kind of long gone. The in office versus hybrid culture, like all of that is a challenge these days. I guess from a leadership position, now you explain your role a little bit with the agency, and then we'll dig into what that looks like in maintaining a healthy team and work culture. So what do you do for the agency exactly beyond selling real estate?
Okay, beyond selling real estate, I'm the managing director. I guess that role, it's a little bit different at every brokerage, right? Some of the brokerages you're in charge of recruiting, and I've done a little bit of recruiting, but I'm more so in charge of the training and development aspects for the team, and in helping run the day-to-day operations, in helping make some of the bigger decisions with Peter and Paige in conjunction with the managing partners to say, here's kind of the route that we are going, here's what we should do on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, here's what the training needs to look like, here's where the gaps are for the agents, and what can we provide them with as a resource to help with their development to further their business, right? Because in turn, the brokerage's goal is to make money, to sell. But how do you help your agents sell and empower them to do more? And then once again, if you just go back to the basics of training, whether it's on, and it depends on each agent, because some agents need more soft selling skills. Some agents need more overcoming objections skills. Some agents have that, and they just need more follow-up or in understanding how to overcome that fear of rejection or door knocking or picking up the phone and calling. And the hardest part about calling is actually just picking up the phone and hitting the call button. And
Yeah.
that's been, I'll share my personal story, is it's been harder for me in the beginning to pick up the phone and call. I know what to say. That's comfortable for me to have any conversation with anyone, whether I'm door knocking or cold calling. I find I have the answers to their questions, or I'm very in tune with the market. And it's funny, we're discussing this because I had a conversation with one of the newer agents who's here, and he had been coming in for months while he was getting his license. He wanted to learn, and he just got his license. And then we went through a role play. I just asked him, I'm like, okay, tell me about the market. And he had a difficult time at that point explaining that. So I broke it down. I'm like, before you even make the calls and you're trying to chop down this tree with the same axe that you've been using for 3-4 weeks, but that tree's not being chopped down at all. So what's the issue? Are you not sharpening your axe? And then go back to the learning aspect. And I think a lot of people just deep dive into, let me door knock, let me cold call, let me just step back, understand what's happening in the market. If someone asks me a question of, okay, what happened in the market or what's happening right now, and you're not able to answer it, is now a good time to sell? And
Yeah.
if you're stumped by that question, that's the very basic of questions. You should know what happened last month. You should know what the average price point is. You should know that we went down 3% last month, month over month, or we've gone down the last 3 months. We're 18% down from the peak. That's a real statistic. The peak was 1,340,000 back in February of 2022. That's when we reached it. And we were going up 7% for 2 months, if you remember that, like Jan, Feb, March period. And then from March onwards, we pretty much went down every single month. From the peak to the bottom, we were down 22%.
Yeah.
And then we rode back up February, March, April, May. I think it was like 5, 1, 4, and like 3.7 or something. So effectively, we went up for those 4 months between Feb to June. And in understanding that, this now presents an opportunity for buyers out there because it's also come down like month over month, probably around 9% across the last 3 months. So this is your opportunity. We're 18 points down from the peak. Your opportunity to go out there and go pick something up at a heavy discount. And I know everyone's afraid of what's going to happen. The interest rates held this morning. Look, if the interest rates are to come down in a year, year and a half, if they come down, and I'm not saying they will,
Sure.
nobody knows what's going to happen. What's going to happen to the prices if they come down, even 50 basis points will happen? I believe the prices are going to go up if the interest rates come down. And I think there's buyers out there that are waiting and have been waiting on the sidelines. I know I'd much rather, as a buyer or an investor, be looking for a deal today at the
Yeah.
discounted value than trying to take a 5% interest rate instead of a 6.2 and pay 100 or 200 grand more a year or 2 years down the road. Because that equity is the long game. The interest rate is not. Interest rates will vary, they'll fluctuate, they'll change. And when you look at the numbers and I'm a numbers guy, right? Like, so I've got, like, that's easy for me to talk to. At 2% interest rate, which was there 2 years ago, effectively every $100,000 costs you $370. Today at 6.25%, and I ran the numbers as well, it costs you $610 at a 6.25% interest rate. So if we've gone up in mortgages by 65%, so the cost of borrowing is up 65% when you do the numbers, while prices have come down 18. So what happens when the cost of borrowing goes down by 10% or 15%? What's going to happen to those prices? So they had to impact that by 65 for us to bring the market down by 18. That tells you how strong our market actually is.
Yeah, they've been cranking on sentiment for a while, and the conference, we actually role played this morning, and I think that's the heart of the conversation is being in the weeds and training and knowing your product, knowing your market. I don't care if you're selling jets, houses, commercial real estate, residential real estate. Knowing the market's absolutely key. Knowing how to talk to human beings is absolutely key, right? And if you're not good at those two things, doing the activities over and over and over, not generating the results, you're going to keep doing the activities, putting out terrible content, making bad phone calls. If you're not getting the appointments, look at your process. What you just shared, like we role played this morning, we were talking about like being equipped with the data. So if I'm talking about a buyer that wants to purchase in Grand Bend and they think, no, the prices need to come down more, I showed them a case study where there was a place that we sold. It was a flip renovation property. My clients bought it. They renovated it. It's STR, short-term rental now, and they're crushing it. But they bought it in like the 900,000s. And I said, what are the houses around it selling for that are projects? 900,000s. So this was after the peak. They bought it when things had already corrected. The correction hasn't happened that much more beyond what they purchased it at a year and a half ago. And when I was talking to the clients about it, I'm like, what are you buying for? Are you buying for like a quick purchase and sell in the next 6 months to 12 months? Because sure, it may be rocking. Prices may still go down. That's fine. Like we can have that conversation. Or are you buying into the market because you believe in Grand Bend? And they were like, well, no, I believe in Grand Bend because I see the millions of dollars of investment, the new home communities and everything else. I'm like, okay, so they just launched Soul in Grand Bend, which is a brand new home subdivision. It's probably going to take them 5 years to sell that out. So let me ask you this question. That asset that you can buy in the nines now that you think is still overpriced, let's say it is. Let's say you buy it at 900 and it drops to 850. In 5 years or 3 years, when they stabilize rates and we're back into the 4 or 5 range, what do you think happens to that market? And they're like, oh, it's going to be gangbusters because so much new developments come offline. There's no inventory. I'm like, okay. So we're having a conversation. We need to zoom out to understand what's happening from a macro perspective, but also have a macro strategy and then zoom in on the deal. And let's analyze the deal independent of what Uncle Jimmy's telling you at dinner, because Uncle Jimmy's never going to invest in real estate. And after that property goes up in value and you do what you do to it, and you refinance it, whatever that looks like, Uncle Jimmy's going to tell you you got lucky, even though you looked at the opportunity, right? And I think regardless of if it's business or transactions, I am a value-based investor and I'm an opportunity-based investor, whether it's human capital or whether it's real estate. I think finding the opportunity in the market, whether it comes to business or transacting real estate, is what the game is all about. We started off the conversation with AI, huge opportunity in that space. We're talking about teamwork, collaboration, and culture, huge opportunity in that space as well. I did want to ask you your thoughts because I don't know how you manage the team where you're at. Are you guys doing stuff in person? Is it all over Zoom? Like, what does the hybrid, team culture look like? Is it physical, or do you find people are kind of working remotely these days?
It's 50-50. Some agents will show up to the office and others won't. And it's consistently the same people show up and the same people don't. And there's some new people that don't want to show up. And I think you have to look, at the end of the day, we're all entrepreneurs. You have to invest in your success. Nobody's coming to hold your hand to say everything it is that you need to do if you're not going to go out and be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
So I think do the work and have the power, right? And all the power to those who are willing to learn. And I feel like we have way more tools today than we did 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, but people aren't utilizing the tools or the resources. And by resources, I even mean the people that you're surrounded by. If you're surrounded by a top agent, go ask them. When I went to the Tom Ferry Summit or the agency forum last year, I was surrounded by people that are doing immense business. So instead of taking selfies with them, I'm there asking them questions about what I can do to better my business or what it is they did. And maybe I pick up one small, simple piece of strategy, or maybe I'm motivated by something or just inspired by what it is that they're doing. And there's different ways to utilize the people around you, and you're not using them, but you are using them to gain something. But you should also give something back if you can, right? Like I try to help new agents out with any information I have. I know where I've kind of fallen down, where I've been inconsistent in my year one or year two. And although my year one was incredible for year one, but it still wasn't anywhere near what I could have done. I worked at like a 25% capacity, did hundreds of thousands of dollars in first year. How's that even? It doesn't make sense. And then you realize the longer you go doing that, the less consistent it is, because it's all gravy at once, but then you need the consistency to be able to make consistent sales, consistent business, and have past clients. Like I've been lucky enough, I have a lot of past clients and referrals that do come in, which really helps. But it's about generating that new business over and over again and keeping the pipeline full, right? More real estate conversations equals more deals. It's as simple as that.
How have you kept that referral pipeline kind of flowing over the years too? Like what does it look like for you to manage your past client database?
It's personally giving them a call. That's a big part. If I'm in the area, I've sometimes dropped by. I do closing gifts, but I don't do yearly gifts. I know a lot of people are all about the gifts every year, touch points. But I do try to call clients quarterly, past clients especially, and keeping in touch with them. It's funny, I had a client who bought a $1.6 million property off me as an investment 2 years ago, and she's about to close on it next month. And I called her a few months ago just to check in. Hey, you're closing. Just want to touch base. What's happening? And I was about to hang up in the end. And I said to her, before I get off the phone, is there any other real estate needs that you need help with? She said, oh, I need to sell my house.
Huh.
But if I didn't ask the question,
oh my gosh, yeah.
How wild is that? That turned into a listing. We sold that listing in a week, and it sold at the date of the last rate hike. That
Wow.
happened the same date as the rate hike. And we got the price that I said we would get. And I gave her a $10,000 range of where I thought it would sell. And mind you, the first offer that came in was $70,000 off from that point, and it was a conditional offer upon financing and upon inspection.
Wow.
It took me 7 hours back and forth, negotiated that up $70,000. It went up 30, it went up 40, it went up 50, but slowly we got it there. And then we sold it at the price we wanted, and it was a firm deal. Got the conditions taken out. But that's also the power of negotiation and understanding what you can do for your clients. And I do want to touch upon that because I feel like there's a lot of agents that are out there that don't bring value to their clients, or people are hiring agents that are their cousins or their nephews. And oh, he has a part-time license, he's going to give me a deal on 1%. And well, if you save that 1% or 1.5% effectively on that property sold for 122, I'll give you the example.
Sure.
If you ended up selling that for 115 because someone fear-mongered you into selling it to say, oh my God, the interest rates are there, take this offer, because they don't know what they're doing or they're not confident. Because the moment you counter an offer, the original offer is dead. And you have that, you don't know what's going to happen, right? So there's people out there, if they convince you to take 118 instead of 122 or 115 or 119, you would have lost 30, 40, 50, $70,000 effectively. Versus saving the $15,000 or $18,000. I still think there's a lot of people that don't realize the benefit to hiring an agent that is able to negotiate for them and be able to market their property for them the right way to sell it for maximum dollar.
Yeah, I mean, that's in all things. So I was with a guy at lunch, very, very high-end investor, has done quite a few. We actually just disposed of an 18-unit building for him. And we were talking about like the value of what he brings to the table. And I said to him, for other investors, man, I'd pay you $1,500, $2,000 an hour to help me on a project, even just walk through and tell me what to do with it. Give me your contacts and your trades, because that $2,000 that I pay for that hour walkthrough is probably going to save me $10,000 to $30,000 in just the access I get, the pricing I get from your vendors. And we've always been focused on that on our platform. I send out my seller reports. There was one I did recently. We had MLS, I think the exposure was like 2,700, 2 leads. Our platform, 283,000 impressions, 74 leads. Like, hey, I don't even need MLS at this point, given the platform that we're building. And that's not even the negotiation skills that I'll bring to the table. I try to be a profit center for my people like you. And I'm excited to have this conversation. You bring that up, because I never really say it, because I don't want people to think I'm like Johnny real estate agent, call me to buy or sell your house. That's not what this show's about. But the level of competence that I'm striving for is similar to what you're trying to do. And what you're explaining, agents should be striving for as well, because I think there is value there in an industry where we've been commodified, and people sometimes try to compare us as no different than, well, it doesn't matter if I hire you or 4 other agents, it's all going to be the same result, right?
Yeah. And I had someone say this to me, well, I want to buy a house and, I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to find the house I like.
Yep.
And people really believe that they're doing all the work. They don't think contracts, negotiations, showings. Sure, we just open the doors, right? We just open up the lockbox, show you the house.
Problem,
yeah,
right?
actually, a lot of agents do. I actually think a lot of agents do it, but I'd probably say more than 50% of the people out there just are there to open doors. And a lot of people aren't even full-time in the business, right? Yeah. So in understanding, and I had this buyer, I'll give you real life example. So that way it's legitimate. This property was listed for 4.1 million. The property that he ended up buying. I was working with this buyer for 2 years to find a house.
Okay.
It's a long time. We had actually just signed a conditional offer that night at, and Mark Salerno is going to kill me because it was a deal with him. And then we ended up backing out of that deal. It was around 3 million. But finally, we have a deal together for 3 million. And I sent this $4.1 million property that had dropped in price a little bit. I was like, guys, I just want to share this. But I was putting their benefit above mine to say, you know what? I think this is a great piece of property just to take a look at. Up to you what you guys want to do. My job is to throw it in front of you. And I'm never I never put my interests above my clients, or here's a $3 million deal, I'm going to get lots of commission on this. No, it's about, hey, what's best for my clients. And the difference between the two was, one was absolutely done up to the nines. Everything was perfect, custom built, was built less than 5 years ago. But it didn't have any upwards potential. And the other one had insane upwards potential, built in 1989, backs onto a golf course,
Oh,
has
wow.
massive potential to build out. The lot is 120 wide at the back by 250 deep. 100 foot of it is on a downslope, and just understanding that. So we actually end up accepting the conditional offer, and we go to look at this house, and we look at it and we absolutely fall in love, not because the finishes were better, but because it had potential.
Potential.
Now, I ended up getting that house for them for 3,350,000. It
Hmm.
was listed at 4. It shouldn't have sold for less than 3.6. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way it should have sold for less than that. It's worth well over $4 million today. But it's understanding how to negotiate that deal to bring it down, because we sent an offer and then we actually backed out. We said, nah, we're okay. We went back 2 days later with another offer, and then we were able to get it exactly where we wanted it, and actually below where I thought we'd even get it. But I knew I had to try. I told them, I was like, I think I can get you 345 to 35. Um, but we ended up getting it at 335.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, right? You play your cards right and negotiate right, you can save people a lot of money. But instead of, oh, I'm doing all the work, what are you going to do? You're just submitting an offer.
I got an offer on one of my listings 2 days ago, just my email, no text message, no phone call, no presentation, no context to it. And I looked at it and I'm like, man, the gene pool is shallow in our industry in some places. And, that agent, in my opinion, deserves to be discounted because they're offering a discounted service. And I think this should be encouraging to those that realize that it is very easy to stand out. And I think you got to practice your skill set. You got to constantly refine it and look for the opportunity zones. And on the buyer side, you make your money when you buy real estate. So that purchaser that purchased that property with you, they get an immediate realization of that equity, not to mention kind of the long-term upside. So I appreciate that story. I'm gonna ask you one more question, and we're gonna get to the rapid fire stuff. On the agent side of the business, from people that you've followed, people that you've tried to emulate, people that you've trained, I guess, what is like 3 of the most common characteristics you see that lead to people's success?
Hmm. 3 of the most common. Okay, I'd say one is being obsessed with what they do, and really loving and enjoying what they do. 2 is being consistent and actually either creating consistent content, consistently educating themselves, and just following their steps that they need to do. If they need to make 100 calls a day, they're doing that. They need to go door knock 25 doors a day, they're doing that. And there's no one set way of making money in real estate. Everything works. You just have to stay consistent for a long period of time to make it work. I truly believe in that. And even till today, we have door knockers, we have cold callers, we have geo farmers, they all online lead generators, they all make money. And you just need to pick it and stick to it for a long period of time and just do it consistently, have fun with it, and just stay better at your craft. I gave you 2, but I think those 2 probably encompass everything: obsession and consistency.
Yeah, I love
And
it. For people watching this, pick one and just focus on it. Because if you're like, I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to do TikTok, I'm going to build a referral network, I'm going to do Facebook ads. Like, if you try and do everything, you're never going to get better at any one of those things, right?
so Facebook ads, that's where I really got my kick that first year. Is I had a coach. I hired a coach my first year, and then I got rid of my coach like 6 months in. But one thing that I did learn was how to run. He told me where to find the information to run Facebook ads
Oh,
effectively.
okay. Yeah.
I spent lots of money that
Mhm.
first year. And in the first 6 months, I had nothing, 8 months, nothing out of there. And then boom, I spent $600 and I made like 100 grand.
Oh, wow.
And then I spent 9 grand on one of my campaigns. I made 160 grand.
Wow.
And then it was like, okay, your head starts spinning. You're like, I've spent over 30, 40,000 right around there. I've definitely pretty much 10x what I've spent on there, but it was for pre-construction projects. You're buying leads. You're putting those leads in your database, and then the proof is in the follow-up. One of the places where I messed up, and I'm telling you this, I've 10x my ROI, and I don't think I tapped into even 30% of what I was capable of, or 40%, because I didn't have the manpower or the capacity to make that many calls a day. When it was hitting, I should have been making more calls. I should have spent more time. But in hindsight, you realize that don't buy leads and then not work them. Buy leads to work them. And if you're buying too many leads, just stop or go
Yeah.
hire help. Pick one set. You're either going to hire help or you're going to call your leads, or else don't just spend money on the sake of spending money. So now, 3 years in full time, I have a database of 3,600 people, but now those people are being worked and they're in the pipeline. They're being converted. We found an investor out of that a couple months ago. I made 9 calls yesterday. 9 conversations is exactly what I had. I got 5 appointments out of it. So
Yeah.
those are people that want to, and these are people that have been in the pipeline and they've been thinking about it throughout the year, or we've had some sort of conversations between my assistant or myself. But guys, if people tell you lead generation doesn't work, online leads,
Yeah.
it does. It's just you have to do everything for 12 to 18 months and not think of the return right away. Because I think everyone tries it for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, I tried it. Or they try it like twice. They'll go door knock and they'll be like, it doesn't work. But what's the point of door knocking? Right? It's not to get a listing, it's to build a relationship. Because even through door knocking, we've got pocket listings in Oakville we've got one for 11.8 million and one for 7 million. So now it's just finding a buyer for those is not very easy, mind you, but these are contacts. And when we did have a buyer, we called up one of them. We're like, hey, we've got a buyer. Are you okay that we show this property? We'll do an exclusive, this, that, and got it done. It works out. Now, we didn't sell that property. I hope we did, but it was with one of my partners that we went door knocking. So
I
even
love
then, you're
that.
trying to provide value, right? Like that's the number one thing is how much information do you have and how are you able to relay it to the client ideally?
Yeah, well, and so we have a leaderboard. We were playing around with it this morning, where it tracks everything we do as like a team, and then agents based on like certain actions they do will get more points than others. Well, the number one thing that you can do is get appointments. So it was interesting because one agent had done a whole bunch of touches, the other agent less touches but more appointments out of the touches he made. So he was at the top spot. And we were discussing about, the collaboration piece of like, well, asking that agent, what did you do in those conversations that yielded those appointments? Like, what value did you provide the 10 people that you called versus the 30 that I called that generated twice as many appointments as I got from the 30? And I think that's the fun part about what we do. There's an art to this business that I know you definitely appreciate. And I could talk to you for hours about this. I got 3 rapid fire questions for you, and I'm going to get you out of here because I know you got lots of big places to sell and people to train. Number 1 question: how has failure shaped your life?
Oh man. I'll use a quote. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. I'm glad you sent me all these questions so I could remember.
I said this is off
I had no
the
idea you
rip.
were going to ask
There's
that.
no prep for my show, unlike many others you've probably been on. This is a real conversation with 2 people that are actually in it.
That's
Go ahead. You're gonna say
that's
something.
by Winston Churchill, and the key to that is, guys, we are all going to fail, and I failed over and over again, and that is why, like, you will succeed by failing, and you step back and you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. If everything is rosy every single day, you're actually learning much less. You think you know everything, but then till you fail and it kicks you in the ass, you're like, okay, what can I tweak? And I think if everyone did this one thing, and I learned this at an early age within my retail career, because I had some fantastic mentors that helped me and they would give me feedback. I would seek it. I wouldn't get upset if they gave me feedback. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to try to prove you wrong. And I'm going to learn from this and get better. I'm going to show you what I can do versus get mad at someone giving you feedback. Go as a leader, I think as a broker, go seek feedback from your agents. They'll tell you what they think of you. They'll tell you what you can do better. But you also need to break the barrier that you have because they may not be comfortable giving you feedback. I think that is also signs of a great leader that can take the feedback and use that to impact themselves and how they lead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
I agree.
long-winded. That wasn't
No,
quite
I
rapid
agree
fire.
with that implicitly. I think you have to be able to trust the people that you're working with and have in-depth conversations with them about, what's the vision of what they're trying to create, what are you trying to create, and find collaboration or not. And that's okay. We've had people come in and out of our organization that don't track to see our core values, aren't looking for the same thing that we're looking for, and that's okay. And our goal is to retain the people that are and collaborate with clients and people in community, other agents that could be deemed our competition, in a way that makes the entire community better, which is possible. I got a second question. We may have touched on it, but maybe there's something else. Like the 80% of your world that like the back of your hand, you're a black belt in, but there's always that 20% that you're learning. What are you learning right now that you're excited about?
Creating consistent content and content strategies around YouTube. That is probably the number one thing. And it's probably up there with AI as well. I have dove into AI the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. And I'm just trying to utilize that to impact my business in a more positive way. And then strategically creating content that targets people and helps them with their everyday decision. Because I'd like to be able to make content that people can go to that's evergreen, that will just be informative, educational, fun, and just give them the right insights versus what they hear and all the fluff that they hear in the market.
Yeah, and I love that concept. Actually, I'll send you my friend Chelsea's book, What to Post. So Chelsea Pites, she's pretty big in the real estate space, on the marketing space, and that may help with that content creation piece. And I guess the last and most important question, you made time for my audience. What message do you want to leave for the entire Prime Nation today?
Ooh, I want to say thank you for having me on. I'm honored and I'm humbled to be on your podcast with some of the top people that have been on here. And I just want to say, guys, love what you do. Enjoy it. Try to get better at whatever your craft is every single day. Be open to feedback and have fun with it. You're going to fail throughout the way, but that is how you will succeed in the long run. Just have fun, be positive. Mindset is everything. Like, wake up and tell yourself, I'm going to go fucking do it, and you will do it. I'm telling you, there's nothing in the world you can't do. I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of wonderful people, and I've seen a lot of people's journeys. And there is nothing that you can't do. Your biggest opponent is the person staring at you in the mirror. That's it. It's you against yourself, continuous, never ending improvement every single day. Be better today than you are yesterday.
I appreciate you so much, brother. Excited to do the next one in person. If you got any value from this episode, make sure to smash that like and that subscribe button. Go connect with Fahad on Instagram directly. Tell him what you learned. And don't forget to leave a rating or review and share this episode with somebody that you think would enjoy it. But I'll catch you on the next one, brother.